life that was stolen by a woman in a wig. She was a victim of the thief, and then a victim of the system that was supposed to protect her. Chapter 12, The Unending Shadow. Dr. Jorge Martinez sits in a federal prison, the white coat replaced by a jumpsuit. The millions he stole couldn't buy him a way out of the murder charge. He is a man who thought he was a god, now reduced to a number, and the Wheaton Bandit. The case remains open. The FBI task force still reviews the tips. The reward still sits unclaimed. Somewhere, perhaps, a man with striking blue eyes looks in the mirror and wonders which version of himself is real, the man in the suit or the shadow in the bushes. The paper shadows are always there, waiting in the mail, floating in the digital clouds, drifting in the sterile air of a doctor's office. They are waiting for someone to reach out and grab them. Author's note: this narrative weaves together true accounts of identity theft, medical fraud, and high-stakes robbery featured in investigative reports. While dramatized, these stories highlight the devastating impact of greed on individual lives and the integrity of our institutions. American Mirage: The Profits of Shame and the Price of Greed. Prologue: The Cost of a Smile. The American dream has always been a commodity. It is bought in installments, sold in 30-second television spots, and packaged in plastic bottles with bright, optimistic labels. In the late 1990s and early 2000s, that dream took on a very specific, very masculine shape. It was the dream of vitality, of regained youth, and of a smile that never faded. But behind the neon lights of the marketing campaigns and the billion-dollar balance sheets, there was a rot. It was a rot built on the exploitation of human insecurity, the quiet, desperate fear of being less than. Two men, separated by geography, but united by a hollowed-out morality, became the architects of this era's greatest deceptions. One sold a pill that promised manhood. The other sold a fund that promised legacy. Both sold a lie. This is the story of Stephen Warshak and Kirk Wright. This is the chronicle of the funny money. Book 1, The Smile of the Shark. Chapter 1, The Basement Alchemist. Cincinnati, 1996. The air in the Ohio River Valley was thick with humidity and the scent of industrial exhaust. In a cramped, dimly lit basement in a nondescript suburb, Stephen Warshak sat hunched over a folding card table. The only sound was the rhythmic scratching of a pen against a ledger and the occasional hum of a dehumidifier that struggled to keep the mold at bay. Stephen was 30 years old, but he possessed the frantic energy of a man who felt the clock of his life ticking toward a deadline only he could see. He wasn't interested in a career. He was interested in an empire. He watched his mother, a woman whose loyalty would eventually become her undoing, answering a rotary phone on the other side of the room. Berkeley Nutraceuticals, she would say, her voice practiced and sweet. How can we help you achieve your goals today? At that moment, Berkeley Nutraceuticals was nothing more than a few boxes of generic supplements and a dream of mass-market manipulation. Stephen didn't have a medical degree. He didn't have a background in chemistry. What he had was a genius for the hook. He understood that people didn't buy products. They bought the person they hoped the product would turn them into. The back of the magazines, Steve, his mother said, hanging up the phone after taking a credit card number. They're calling from the back of the magazines. Stephen nodded, his eyes bright with a predatory gleam. He had been buying ad space in the shadows of the publishing world, the back pages of Playboy, Penthouse, and Outside. These were the places where men looked for secrets, where they felt safe admitting to their inadequacies. He began to write. He crafted claims that hovered just on the edge of legality, using words like natural, enhancement, and guaranteed. He wasn't selling vitamins. He was selling a solution to the most private anxiety a man could harbor. "We need a face, Ma," Stephen whispered, staring at a blank sheet of paper. "Not a doctor, not a scientist. We need a guy everyone wants to be." Chapter 2: The Birth of Bob. By 2001, the basement was a memory. Berkeley Nutraceuticals had moved into a sleek corporate headquarters outside Cincinnati. The shoestring operation had transformed into a juggernaut, but Stephen knew the back of the magazine's crowd had a ceiling. To reach the hundreds of millions, he needed the glow of the television screen. He sat in a high-end boardroom with marketing executives, men in expensive suits who specialized in the alchemy of perception. "We need something memorable," one executive said, clicking through a slideshow of traditional pharmaceutical ads. "Viagra is clinical. Charlie's is romantic. We need to be fun." Stephen leaned back, his fingers interlaced. "No, we need to be enviable. I want a character who is so happy it's almost annoying. A guy who walks through life like he's just won the lottery every single morning." The creative team returned a week later with a storyboard. At the center of it was a middle-aged man with a square jaw, a crisp polo shirt, and a grin that seemed to stretch from ear to ear. They called him Smiling Bob. The campaign was a masterpiece of innuendo. Bob didn't talk about blood flow or clinical trials. Bob just smiled. He waved to his neighbors with an absurdly high level of enthusiasm. He whistled while he worked. He looked at his wife with a twinkle in his eye that suggested a secret, vigorous life behind closed doors. When the first wonders of wood commercial aired on major cable networks, the world changed for Stephen Warshak. The phones didn't just ring, they exploded. The Smiling Bob theme song became a cultural earworm. In Zeit, the once daily tablet for natural male enhancement, was no longer a fringe supplement. It was a household name. It was on the shelves of Walmart, Walgreens, and CVS. Stephen watched the numbers climb. $50 million, $100 million, $200 million in annual revenue. He was the king of Cincinnati, a local boy who had turned a basement hobby into a national phenomenon. He was living the American dream: the big house, the fast cars, the respect of his peers. But the dream was built on a foundation of shifting sand. Chapter 3